For years he welded in silence, smiled for the cameras, and built dream cars from literal junk. It's not what you have, it's what you can make. But behind the roar of engines and the flash of chrome, something much darker was revving in the background. At 53, Chad Hiltz, better known as Bad Chad, has finally admitted the one thing fans have whispered about for years. It's not about money, fame, or even the stress of the spotlight. This goes deeper, more personal, and it's left fans both heartbroken and furious. In a moment of unfiltered honesty, he uttered the words no one expected, "I'm forced to hide this." But hide what, and why? What could push a man so bold, so unapologetically raw, to conceal something for decades? The truth is now out, and it changes everything we thought we knew about him. Long before the world knew him as Bad Chad, he was just Chad Hiltz from the small town of Canning, Nova Scotia. No silver spoon, no high-end tools, just a kid with big dreams and barely enough resources to get by. But what he lacked in money, he more than made up for in grit, vision, and an almost obsessive passion for building something out of nothing. His early life wasn't easy. Dropping out of high school and navigating a rough youth, Chad seemed destined for a quiet, hard-working life far from fame. But hidden within that small-town rebel was a mechanical savant, a man who could turn scrap metal and broken-down parts into jaw-dropping custom cars. His builds were raw, imaginative, and wildly unconventional, often stitched together with materials most builders wouldn't even touch. That's exactly what made him stand out. Chad's big break came with the launch of Bad Chad Customs on Discovery Channel. The show wasn't about big-budget builds or gleaming luxury garages. It was something else entirely. Set in Hilts, his modest garage in Nova Scotia, the series followed Chad and his tight-knit team, including his partner Jolene McIntyre, as they tackled ambitious projects on shoestring budgets. Viewers were instantly drawn in, not just by the creativity of the cars, but by the magnetic chaos of Chad himself. In 2019, the first season of Discovery Channel's Bad Chad Customs aired internationally to an audience of millions, Hiltz said. And even after production of Season 3 was delayed by COVID, we really had nowhere to go but social media. To fans, he was the real deal. He didn't care about industry rules or purist standards. He'd weld license plates into fenders and turn airplane parts into spoilers. He was scrappy, relentless, and didn't pretend to be anything he wasn't. His eccentric fashion sense, blunt honesty, and boundless energy made him instantly iconic. But he wasn't just building cars. He was building a myth. The myth of the underdog genius, a man who broke the mold, shattered expectations, and lived outside the system. And while that myth inspired thousands across the globe, it also created an impossible standard. Chad became a symbol of fearless creativity, but that came with a heavy price. Behind the scenes, the demands of constant innovation, television production, pressure, and an ever-growing fan base began to weigh him down. Unlike many reality stars who faded into comfortable obscurity, Chad remained visible and vulnerable. Every post, every project, every decision was scrutinized. And slowly, things began to shift. Whispers began circulating online. Was he burning out? Was the pressure catching up to him? Some fans noticed changes in his demeanor. He was still brilliant, but also distracted, more distant. The spark was still there, but it flickered at times. And then there were the critics. For every die-hard supporter who praised his ingenuity, there were just as many who questioned his craftsmanship. Keyboard experts tore apart his builds. Online, Forums mocked his techniques. Some accused him of being reckless. Others claimed he was just a TV mechanic, more showman than artisan. Still, Chad kept going, kept building, kept smiling until now. Because, as it turns out, something was going on behind the curtain, something he'd kept buried for years. And when he finally said the words, "I'm forced to hide this," it cracked the myth wide open. The man fans thought they knew he was real. But he was also in pain. And this secret was something even bad Chad couldn't outbuild. When Chad Hiltz stepped into the spotlight as bad Chad, something unexpected happened. He didn't just become a celebrity in the custom car world. He became a symbol, a myth, a living embodiment of rebellion, grit, and unapologetic individualism. It wasn't crafted in a Hollywood studio. It wasn't pushed by publicists or branding experts. It happened organically. One chopped roof, one backyard weld, one stubborn decision at a time. Fans watched in awe as Chad transformed literal scrap into works of art. Not just cars, but rolling pieces of personal expression. He didn't follow the rules because he didn't believe in them, and people loved him for it. He was the guy who refused to conform. He wore ragged t-shirts instead of embroidered shop uniforms. He sprayed paint with a kitchen spoon if he had to. He'd reshape rusted-out metal with a hammer and willpower. To some, it looked chaotic. To others, it looked like freedom. Chad Hiltz wasn't just building cars. He was building a narrative, and the narrative was intoxicating. In a world full of overproduced television shows and fake drama, bad Chad Customs offered something real, or at least something that felt real. The small-town garage, the skeleton crew, the impossible deadlines, the tension between Chad's wild ideas and the limitations of his budget all worked like magic. He became a folk hero for the modern gearhead. It's very raw and authentic, and I feel like that is our competitive advantage over other YouTube channels, Jolene McIntyre said. They don't show the real deal where we show the real process from start to finish. But here's the problem with folk heroes. People don't want them to change. As Chad's fame grew, so did the mythology around him. Fans began to project onto him their own ideals, the self-made man, the working-class savant, the genius outsider who beat the odds without selling out. He became the everyman success story, and that meant something powerful to a lot of people, but it also became a cage. To live up to the legend, Chad had to become more than himself. He had to be always creative, always bold, always on. He couldn't have a bad day, couldn't make a mistake, couldn't admit doubt or fear. The character of bad Chad was larger than life, and the man behind him had to keep up no matter what it cost. It started subtly, a missed post here, a shorter than usual video there. When fans asked if something was wrong, Chad would brush it off with a joke or a shrug. But over time, the cracks began to show. The stress was growing. The workload never stopped, and with each new episode or car reveal, the expectations grew heavier. People no longer watched just to be entertained. They watched to measure him, to challenge him, to criticize him. And that's when the darker side of fandom kicked in. For every message of admiration came another filled with mockery, doubt, or outright hate. Some said he was a hack. Others accused him of endangering customers with his methods. A few went as far as to question his intelligence, his character, even his relationship with Jolene. What started as criticism became personal. But even then, Chad didn't break. He doubled down. He pushed harder on his projects, posted longer videos, tacked on more detail, more flair, more edge. He wasn't just trying to prove the haters wrong. He was trying to live up to the legend people had created for him, a legend that didn't allow for weakness, a legend that couldn't admit, "I'm not okay." Behind the camera, the toll was becoming unbearable. Chad was exhausted, mentally, physically, emotionally, but on screen, the show had to go on. He became a master at compartmentalizing, learning to smile through stress, to laugh while quietly unraveling, because what would happen if he told the truth? What would fans say if they saw the real version of Bad Chad, the one who worried, who got overwhelmed, who sometimes felt like giving up? He believed he already knew the answer. They'd be disappointed. They'd turn on him. They'd stop believing in the myth, so he hid it. He hid the sleepless nights, the fear of letting people down, the guilt of not responding to every fan message, the anxiety before filming, the anger that came when hate mail landed in his inbox, letters and emails, filled with insults, cruelty, even threats. Some were from strangers who simply didn't get him. Others came from people who once claimed to be fans. But no one saw that because Bad Chad didn't talk about it. Instead, he built a wall between himself and the world, a wall made of confidence, sarcasm, and relentless work. And as long as the builds kept coming and the legend stayed intact, he felt like he could survive it. But inside, the man was cracking. The dual life, the myth and the man, was no longer sustainable. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. He couldn't keep saying yes to the image while saying no to his own peace of mind. And eventually, it became too much. At 53, something shifted. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was burnout. Maybe it was finally hitting the point where the pain of pretending was worse than the fear of honesty. Whatever the reason, Chad finally stopped hiding. For a while, Chad managed to keep the illusion alive. The builds got wilder, the cars more complex, the videos more stylized, the energy still electric. But something had shifted, and sharp-eyed fans began to notice. The first signs were subtle. In some episodes of Bad Chad Customs, Chad seemed more irritable. He'd snap mid-project. His eyes looked heavier.